Thank you. So to the very enterprising Chief Executive Officer, Regal Africa Group, and lead convener of the African World Conference, Annie Wembe Gator, distinguished speakers and panelists, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you, convener Annie, for inviting me to this year's African World Conference and adjusting quickly to global dynamics by hosting this conference in a hybrid session where we can participate from all over. I didn't have to travel to Kenya like I had initially planned. I would like to extend my congratulations to the entire Regal Africa Group for holding this feat, the second successive year. And I am very optimistic for conservative sessions in the years ahead to crusade the African world agenda. And whenever I can participate, I want to promise you that I'll come on board to provide the support I need to provide. Ladies and gentlemen, I am particularly pleased to see that this World Conference has chosen me to do the keynote with a special emphasis on creating world opportunities in Africa. This is an area of interest that I have pursued locally for the past 2 decades or so, in Ghana, helping ordinary Ghanaians build fortunes by playing a pioneering role in national financial literacy and effective living campaigns aimed at helping the average person create wealth and ultimately changing the wealth narrative locally and in the entire continent by extension. Before I proceed, allow me to take a quotation by Jim Rohn from his book entitled 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness, and I quote, "A rich man once said, if you took all the money in the world and divided it equally among everybody, it will soon be back in the same pocket it was before." And Robert Kiyosaki, one of the gentlemen who has played a key role when it comes to wealth creation and financial independence, and I quote, "Money is one form of power, but what is even more powerful is financial education. Money comes and money goes, but if you have the education about how money works, you gain power over it and you can begin building wealth." Ladies and gentlemen, I stayed up last night going through the Forbes list of billionaires, going through the list. Interestingly, the top 10 on the list had 8 from one country, USA. So after 10, I continued. Looking through the first 100 on the list. Interestingly, I didn't find anybody from Africa on the first 100. I got to the first 120 and still had none from the continent of Africa. The position of the first name on the list was from Africa was Aliko Dangote. And interestingly, the position was 130th. I continued to see the second African on the list, and the position I saw was 230th. 230th. I didn't believe it was possible. So I went through the list about 3 times, and I still cannot believe it. Maybe after this session, I will go through the list again just to confirm. According to the United Nations, half of the world's gold is mined in Africa. Half of the world gold is mined in Africa. 1/3 of all minerals are in Africa. 12% of the world oil in Africa. 8% of natural gas. 90% of platinum and chromium, a very valuable mineral. 72% of global production of cocoa. Massive water bodies with abundant potential for power generation, agri production, among others. 63% of cobalt and lithium, key metals used to produce batteries from just Congo. And I was surprised last night when I read that 60% of global arable land is also in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, rich and well-diversified continent, but not usually invited to the major global decision table. Why do we see such a high migration numbers? Why are we called the third world continent? Think about this. Why is it that our young population are risking their lives to get out of Africa? The good book states in Proverbs 22:7, and I quote, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is a servant to the lender." Rich nations will rule over poor nations, will rule over the poor ones. To further cast your mind to why the topic for today is very important, let us observe some data from the Afro-Asia Wealth Report, which I think further entreat us on the need to create wealth opportunities in Africa. Despite accounting for 16% or 17% of global population, Africa accounts for just about 1% of estimated total global private wealth. Average individual living in Africa has net asset of about $1,900 compared to global average of $27,000. That is about 14 times less than the average in the world. When you look at the over 14 million high net worth individuals, that is those with a wealth of over $1 million, only 140,000 live in Africa. That is 1% of what we have globally. With over 2,668 billionaires in the world, only 23 live in Africa. In fact, other reports say 21. That is a fraction, just a small percentage. It is estimated that USA alone has over 700 billionaires, China over 600, Germany over 130 billionaires, and Africa as a continent, you're looking at 21, or some will say 23. Based on this report I reviewed yesterday on the Forbes list of billionaires, and when you look at billionaires in Africa, there is none in Ghana, where I am based, and there is none in Kenya, where we are hosting this conference. If we want to connect these unfavorable numbers to the vast resources earlier mentioned, then it's important that we pay attention to this conversation we are having on wealth creation. Some of the key drivers for wealth are security and political stability. And I decided to throw in this due to the recent spate of coups, coup d'etats observed in a number of African countries. And you hear the call for more of such. Some have labeled Africa as a failed continent with the challenges such as bad governance, over-dependence on aid, conflict, poverty, drought, unemployment, corruption, insecurity, and we can go on and on and on. But remember that when you look at regions such as China and Singapore, they have been some of the fast-growing economies worldwide with over the past decade due to the improved safety levels. I mean, so when you look at political stability, these regions have political stability. This further dovetails into the quality that we will need when it comes to visionary leadership, who need to create that environment we need to create wealth. Because to create wealth, we can discuss the opportunities, but we also need that environment. Based on research, aside political stability, top factors that encourages wealth creation in countries and regions include things such as media freedom, things such as strong ownership rights, strong economic growth, well-diversified banking system and the stock market, low level of government intervention, low income tax and company taxes, ease of investment, high net worth migration, when it's very easy to migrate from other continents, from other regions to these countries or regions. Ladies and gentlemen, if one looks at the countries that have supported the creation of wealth by their citizens, the above drivers can clearly be witnessed as being practiced. Having spoken about the platform that will support world creation, we can focus on opportunities for creating world. And before we do that, it's important to state the law of first creation states that everything is created twice, first mentally and second physically. Without the first creation, you cannot have the second creation. Wealth is created twice, first mentally and second physically. And without the first creation, you cannot have the second creation. And I believe that a conference like this, I followed the discussions yesterday, is one level of creation, which is the first one, and definitely the second creation will follow. Now, what are some of the areas of opportunities in Africa? Some were mentioned in Africa yesterday, but permit me to mention a few areas. One is food and agriculture. Africa has a population of over 1.3 billion. These are opportunities to create wealth, definitely, in areas such as grains, milk, raw and processed agri products, cash crops like cocoa, coffee, palm oil, among others. Africa can easily feed the world, and this is a huge opportunity to create wealth. So when we talk about opportunities to create wealth, definitely food and agri-business is one area we need to pay attention to, but we need to be a bit more deliberate in making sure that this area is attractive to create wealth. Another area we need to pay attention to is retail. It's very important we pay attention to the retail space. The biggest players in the African market, the ShopRite, the Game, among others. Online retail stores, though forming less than 5% of total retail market in Africa, are already raking in millions of dollars for those who are paying attention to this area. And Jumia would be a good example. Another area is real estate. Africa has a huge housing deficit. It is estimated that Nigeria alone needs about 18 million new houses, estimated at over $350 billion. That is huge. Ghana, where I sit, also has a housing deficit of over 2 million. These are serious investment opportunities. Opportunities here would also involve investing in land and then properties. Another area is building and construction supplies. In fact, this is a derivative from real estate sector, creating opportunities for areas like cement, roofing materials, timber, glass, paint, electrical supplies, among others. And maybe because of the constraint of time, another area I want to mention finally is financial services. More than 50% of Africa's population is unbanked, which means a vast number of transactions are done in cash. The opportunity arises for fast, efficient financial solutions to this unbanked population. Hence, the proliferation of mobile banking services in a number of countries, including Kenya. I cannot talk about financial services without talking about the space where I am in, that is investment. I had an asset management company in Ghana. When you focus on just the retail space in Ghana, and when I talk about retail, I want to talk about mutual funds and unit trusts. When you focus on this space, I have about 41% of the market share in Ghana. Yes, 41%. But you know what? The total number of clients I have within this space is just about 120,000 clients. Meanwhile, I have 40% of the market share. When you look at Ghana with a population of about 32 million, if you assume that just 20% of the population would be able to invest, if you look at 20% of this 32 million, you'll be looking at over 6 billion. I have 41% of the market share. 41% of this 6 or 6.4 billion, it's about 2.5, 2.6 billion. So when I look at my 120,000 clients, This is just about 4.6% of the market I am supposed to cover. If you look at my 120,000 compared to the 20% of the population, then it's a very small fraction, just about 1%. So the point I want to make here is when it comes to financial services, there is a huge opportunity to make money. I am mindful of the fact that discussions for the rest of the day, when you look at the program, we'll cover areas like benefits of financial planning when creating wealth through savings and investment, and then insurance, creating wealth through entrepreneurship, how we can engage the diaspora, among others. So let me not spend too much time in talking about these areas, except to say that if we want to create wealth in Africa, then there are some areas that must facilitate this. One of the areas is financial literacy. When you talk about financial literacy, it's an area that plugs not only the educated, but also not only the uneducated, but also the educated. So I have met a number of people who are educated, but who are financially illiterate. If we want to create wealth in Africa, then we need to pay attention to financial literacy. And I want to encourage everybody on this webinar or everybody in this conference to pay attention to this area. Let's be deliberate about contributing our quota when it comes to financial literacy. The traditional thinking of go to school, get a good education, find a good job with some secure benefit, work till you are 60 and get a good pension belongs to the old school. It cannot work in the year 2022 and beyond. In the year 2022 and beyond, definitely it's important to go to school, but the average person needs to understand savings, investment, financial planning, wealth creation, among others. Another facilitator we need is entrepreneurship. And I think we need to pay attention in raising more entrepreneurs if we want to create wealth. Another facilitator is the macroeconomic environment we need. We will need some stability when it comes to the macros. We need to be deliberate about creating the right microeconomic environment to create wealth. How do you sustainably create wealth in an environment where you have instability when it comes to your currency, and when you have double-digit inflation recorded constantly? As we're talking, there are a number of countries with inflations heading towards the 20s. Some are above 20 in Africa. How do you create wealth when you have this environment? Another facilitator is the access to cheap capital, and it's another area we need to be deliberate about. Maybe last but not the least, among the facilitators we need to create wealth in Africa is how we can also attract wealth from the other continent. We need to be deliberate, and I know that in our discussions today, it's one of the areas we will cover. Now, my concluding remarks, I want to conclude here. I cannot conclude without talking about the importance of financial planning. Financial planning, one of the areas we're going to be touching on today, but it's an area I am personally big on. And I think if we want to change the narrative when it comes to creating wealth in Africa, when it comes to the opportunities, financial planning is an area we need to pay attention to. Permit me to share a story or two, practical stories or two, and then I would end my remarks. I met a lecturer, a university lecturer, the year 2008, who had started some investment on a smaller scale, but who was investing without a plan. So what I did was to introduce him to the concept of financial planning, did a few future value calculations, a few models here and there. He bought into the concept, and then we started something very deliberate with targets. He followed through the targets. To cut the long story short, I was meeting him once a year to discuss progress. In the year 2018, I got a call from this lecturer who said he was on admission in one of our hospitals in Ghana. and urgently needed to see me. So I rushed to the hospital to meet him. And then he told me that he has challenges with some of his organs, and it doesn't look like he was going to go back home. Very sad story. But he wanted to use the opportunity to thank me for that discussion we had in the year 2008, and the plan I gave to him that he had followed. And to quote him, he said, "You have no idea what you have done to change the fortunes in my own life and in my family." He said, "You have no idea what the conversation we had in 2008 has done to me and my family. I am indeed very grateful." He continued by saying that he had a request. What was his request? He wanted to see me the next day. He wanted me to meet his children. So I went back to the hospital the next day and met his children. He told his children the conversation we had in 2008 and how that had changed his financial fortunes. He walked us through his will. Of course, he had willed his investment to the children. He finally passed on. He died. I attended the funeral. In fact, when we had a conversation, one of the things he told his children was never to move the funds away. He also told the children to make sure that they had their own financial planning session with me, and whatever he had willed for them should be the seed capital. So he passed on. I attended the funeral. Something had happened at the funeral that I will never forget. When his children were invited to read the tributes, his first son walked to me and asked me to join them in reading the tribute. So I joined them. We read the tribute. After funeral, we distributed whatever money he had with us to the three children. The first son had about the equivalent of $400,000. Yes, $400,000. With that as seed capital, using the average treasury rate in Ghana, using a constant exchange rate with a few assumptions. When we did the projection, the first son was going to be worth over $30 million by retirement. Over $30 million by retirement. But this was out of a simple conversation I had with the dad, the year 2008. Can you imagine that? And I have several stories like this. Time will not allow us. 2012, I met somebody, we started a plan, somebody who works in one of the banks in Ghana. At the moment, as I'm talking to you, his investment is worth over $1 million already. Helping the average person to do financial planning and helping them to appreciate the power of compounding is a sure way to create wealth. Let me take a quotation by Brian Tracy in his book entitled Laws of Business Success, and I quote, "John D. Rockefeller started working as a clerk, earning $3.75 per week. From this amount, he gave half to his church and saved 50 cents. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. By the time he was 50, he was perhaps the richest man in the world." Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot hand over the platform without taking a quotation from David Chilton, the wealthy barber. He says, "The best time to plant an oak tree is 20 years ago, and the next best time is now." And I say, the best time we should have had a big conference, a major conference like this, was 20 years ago, and the next best time is now. Again, congratulations to our very enterprising Chief Executive of Regal Africa Group and the lead convener for this Africa World Conference, and Annie and your team for putting this conference together. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the rest of the session for today. Thank you very much. I will hand it over to you, the moderator. Thank you.